Welcome learners to this 8-week MOOC on reading and reflecting on text. The first module. The topic of today's presentation is Concept of Literacy. As the course name suggests, reading and reflecting on text, we have a notion that what is literacy? Where does literacy stands in reading and reflecting on text? So, this presentation will focus on the basics of literacy. So, let us look at the definition of literacy. What does it say? Well, it is the ability to identify, understand, interpret, create, communicate, and compute, like using printed and or written materials associated with varying contexts. So something that enable aspirants, be it in the school stage or in the higher education stage, this literacy carries the ability to identify, understand, interpret, and so many things related to that particular context. And that is why it involves a continuum of learning. We know that after class 1, we go to class 2, 3, 4, and this is how there is a continuum. So, literacy involves a continuum of learning, and thereby it enables an individual to achieve their goals. So, when we are into that continuum in the line of education, so this literacy actually helps us to grow up the ladder. And in this course of action, it enables to develop knowledge and potential and also help us to fully participate in the community and also the wider society. As we all know, education institutions are a miniature form of society, right? And this definition is given by UNESCO 2004. Again, it has been cited in 2017. Now let us come to the national perspective. What does National Literacy Mission says about literacy? It defines literacy as acquiring the skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the ability to apply them in day-to-day life. So we are getting something which is continuum in nature, which is enabling us to identify, understand, interpret, and also in this course helping us to reach or achieve a goal and connect with the wider society as well. So literacy is something which is a continuum. Now when we talk about functional literacy, what does it imply? As National Literacy Mission has already pointed out, the three terms, the skills of reading, writing, arithmetic. Although we have reached far beyond these three iconic words, it gives a self-reliance in the 3 R's, that is reading, writing, and the arithmetic. Also, this instead of W, we refer to as R. So that becomes the 3 R's. Awareness of the causes of deprivation and the ability to move towards amelioration of their condition by participating in the process of development. Of course, when you are enrolling or registering into the school or colleges or universities, you are actually participating in the process of development, and literacy is a stepping stone. Because as already been mentioned that it helps in acquiring the basic skills to improve yourself. It helps in the development in the wider society. How? By improving the economic status, which in turn help in the general well-being. And also, as it is a continuum process, it helps in imbibing the values such as the national integration, conservation of the environment, women's equality, observance of small family norms, and so on and so forth. So, functional literacy is a little more generic in nature. Along with the reading, writing, arithmetic, these skills, it is also giving you a value addition to sustain in the society, to develop in the day's life. More than just reading and writing is another concept of literacy. As the common definition says, it is the ability to read and write. Now this definition, as I have already said in the previous slide, the 3 R's have now extended to other concepts, more extended concepts. So how this extension has come upon us in the arena of education. So in a closer examination, what do we find? That what does mastery of reading and writing look like? If you master reading, if you master in writing, even if you master, how would you measure it? How do we weigh digital and technological proficiency? Because now at this point of time, the reading and writing has taken the shape of digitization, isn't it? And to be proficient in that way of reading and writing is one of the measures of literacy of today. Where do numeracy come in? How do the values of our communities and cultural practices come into play? When measuring literacy, which languages and dialects count and which do not? So these are some of the aspects which we reflect upon while understanding the concept of literacy, which is not just reading and writing, but a little more than that. Despite of these complexities, literacy is the global metric we use to assess the health and competence of the communities, right? Because the communities consist of individuals, and the individuals grow, develop, read, write, acquire values, so on and so forth. So, of course, literacy is the first step towards this development. For example, like high literacy rates have been found to correlate to everything from better access to economic opportunity, to better nutrition, to environmental sustainability, and so on and so forth. We often refer that, a literate person is subject to more values within him. So this is how we can think about the concept of literacy, which is beyond reading and writing. If we look at the history, human history, what does it depict in the light of literacy? As the slide says, that it appeared 8000 BCE and literacy followed about 3200 BCE. Now both technologies, however, are extremely recent developments when we viewed in the context of human history. Of course, and over the last a couple of years, this technology has taken a center stage in even defining the literacy. And at this material point of time, the official literacy varies enormously. We all are witness to this, even within a single region, depending not only on the area's level of development, but also on factors such as social status, gender, vocation, and the various criteria by which a given society understands and measures literacy. So this is how we can relate the concept of literacy to its evolution to the human history. Now, going through the concept of literacy, we have an understanding of what is literacy, what is functional literacy, how literacy is associated with the human history, how literacy has contributed to the development of the communities, development of the individual within itself. And of course, how literacy is beyond only reading, writing and arithmetic. So if we take an extended concept of literacy, we need to know what are the different types of literacy. As this slide reflects, a ramified schematic representation of the types of literacy, and it is based on few parameters: content, learners, purpose, social concerns, citizens' rights, organizational aspects, digitization, and some miscellaneous, some other types, which could not be grouped into the above types. So you can get a thorough idea on the types of literacy on the basis of these parameters. Now just take a quick look of growth of literacy in India. This graph is clear and it speaks for itself. And we all know that literacy in India is a key for social economic progress. And this is how this graph gives in a nutshell. The source is 2011 Census of India. And you can see how the graph is rising. And there are few lines that are representing the parameters: male, female, total, then urban and rural. The status is distinctly reflected through this X and Y axis. Y axis represents the literacy rate, which is given in percentage, and the X axis is the ascending year. It starts from 1900 and ends at 2020. So this will give us a hand-holding of the growth of literacy in India. This is the explanation, illustration of how the growth of literacy in India took place, like in pre-colonial period, in the British period, and the post-independence period. The slide reflects the way literacy took its shape, how literacy changed its shape with the changing periods. Now we often talk about, whenever there is literacy, there is another term associated with it is literacy rate. Now this rate has a formula. The working definition of literacy in the Indian census since 1991 is as follows. So this slide clearly represents the formula through which we can calculate the effective literacy rate. It is also termed as so. So how can we calculate? As you can see on the slide, it is the number of literate persons aged 7 or above divided by population aged 7 and above and multiplied by 100. So this is the effective literacy rate. Now when we talk about the crude literacy rate, it is the total percentage of the people of an area at a particular time who can read and write with understanding, taking the total population of the area including below 7 years of age as the denominator. And it becomes, formula becomes number of literate persons by total population into 100. So this is the calculation formula for the effective literacy rate and the crude literacy rate. In a very snapshot, let me present the literacy efforts that have been taken so far. And this slide represents some of the government efforts, some of the non-governmental efforts. The National Literacy Mission, which was launched in 1988, and it has aimed at attaining a literacy rate of 75% by 2007. Next to it is the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which was launched in 2001 to ensure all children in the age group of 16 to 14 years must attend school and complete 8 years of schooling by 2010. Some of the non-governmental efforts like Manthan Sampurna Vikas Kendram, and the other one is Mamidipudi Venkata Rangayya Foundation. They have also taken a drive initiative towards this literacy efforts. Now this course is reading and reflecting on text. So can we have an idea on what is teaching literacy? Well, it involves both the teaching of reading and the teaching of writing, because the definition of literacy was reading and writing. Remember? So how can we teach reading? How can we teach writing? In schooling, reading and writing are often taught as separate skills, but children show curiosity about the written word and begin to experiment with both in a process of emergent literacy. And they learn to make sense of and use the local writing system they see used around them. So this is another important thing. The context takes a center stage here. Now, reading development involves a range of complex language that underpins and obviously includes phonology, orthography, semantics, morphology, and reading fluency and comprehension. These are very important in the context of teaching literacy. So we have come to the end of this concept of literacy session. We will end with the importance of literacy. It is the foundation for education. Obviously, it improves the self-esteem of an individual. It enhances the quality of life. Of course, improves health, and definitely it reduces or it helps to reduce poverty.